In this video, we're going to be taking a look at information hierarchy in HTML, and in particular, HTML5. We're going to take a look at the H elements, which have been with the web since its beginning, but we'll also take a look at some new elements that are available with HTML5. So, to talk about the H elements, this is probably a review for most of you who have worked with the web before, but in most documents by custom, the information is organized in some way. Some of this organization may be done by the writer or the copy editor, and some organization may be by the designer. But in general, we create hierarchies to allow readers to first scan and then, if necessary, read the entire text. So the H elements that we are familiar with in the web come from the idea of a traditional newspaper headline. And so in newspapers we have headlines, we have sub-headlines, and we have body copy. On the web, the equivalents are H1, H2, and P for paragraphs. So if you look at the way these are set up, the H1 is the biggest headline, H2 is smaller, H3 and H4 and H5 and H6, they get smaller progressively. So in a newspaper, the H1 is the main heading, and under this you can have body copy, which would be enclosed within a P element or paragraph element. Or you could have a subheadline beneath that, like an H2. It's important to note, though, that for an article you can have multiple H2s under or within an H1, but normally on one page you only have one H1. The advantage of H elements is that they provide microdata about the article that's harvested by the search engines to make more sense of your site. So the search engine, for example, Google, will look at H1, H2, and it will say, oh, this is an important summary of the article that's to follow. So it's important that you make use of H1s and H2s and H3s in your web pages, because they provide the essential microdata for search engines. So let's take a look and see how this actually works. What I've done is I've created a page called h.html, and we'll open it in Text Wrangler, and we'll just skip over the head. Really nothing is particularly noteworthy here. What I'd like to point out is this body area. So the first H tag or H element is man bites dog, and under that we have a P tag, which is the body copy. And then below this, H1 is an H2, and H2, because it's H2, it refers back to H1 as kind of like a parent, although it's not within the H1 area. H1 is closed off, but it's like a sub-article or a subsection under the man bites dog headline. And so this is an H2, and here's another H2. And then we close this all off within the body. So let's take a look and see what that looks like. So here we have the H1 is kind of big text, and then the body copy here, and then H2s are underneath. So these are like subheadings. So this is the way you would organize the hierarchy of information on one particular page. Now note that I have adjusted the sizes of the H tags. The H1 is about this big by default, but H2 is by default, if you were to do it, this might be almost the same size as H1. And what I've done here is I've actually gone in and created a style sheet, and I've adjusted the sizes. So you're actually not looking at the default sizes of H1 and H2. I've adjusted things a little bit. So let's now take a look at some of the new elements that are available in HTML5. We have some new elements that may provide some more clarity in terms of the structure of our information or the information hierarchy. And those are section, article, and aside. These are new elements that are available in HTML5. And there's a little bit of confusion about the use of section and article in particular, because HTML5, although it's been in the works for many years, it's a specification which was written by committee, and it's been a little bit unclear about how to actually make use of these two elements in particular. But I'm going to try to outline proper use of section and article coming up. Let's take a look at an example. Let's go past the head and deal directly with the body. And this is a little bit more complicated, but let's try to break it down. Within the body, what I've done is I've created two sections. Now, if you think of a section as in a newspaper, you've got the fashion section, you've got the sports section, you've got the community section, and then you've got articles in each section. So that's the way you need to think of sections and articles. So a section is a large section of like a newspaper, and the individual articles are the things that you read for the information. So within a section, and you can see I've got the section start element and the section end element, and then I'm using H1, so because I'm using sections and articles doesn't mean that I dispense with the old way of organization. I can use the H elements along with the new section and article elements. In this case, I've got an H1, which is the top of the section, so this is just the name of the section. And I've put in square brackets just so that when we look at it in HTML, we can see what each section is. You don't have to put these in. In fact, you wouldn't put them in. I'm just doing it to show you in this demonstration where the sections are and where the articles are. So within the section, I've got an H1, and then within each article, I have an H2 and a paragraph tag. And then I close off the article when I'm done that article. Within the same section, I've got article number 2 with an H2 element and a paragraph, and then a third article. And then at the end of the section, I close it off, and then I can start a new section. And this new section happens to be community events. And so within this, I've done the same thing. H1 to mark off the start of the section, then the article, article number 2, article number 3. But within the last article in the second section, I've added a third element, and this is called the aside. And an aside is like what you would normally think of in graphic design as being like a sidebar. This is something which is associated with but not necessarily part of the stream of the article that it's within. So in the aside, I've got an H3, and I actually need to put this within a paragraph. And we'll save this. And we'll take a look. So this is how the page actually renders in Google Chrome. I've got the game section here and the articles within the section, and then community events, and then the aside. And this is, I've added some styling information here to put a little box around it, and also to pad the text so that it isn't coming right up against the border. I guess the reason why HTML5 has the article and section is because through the use over the past 15 years or so of the web, we've noticed the prevalence of the concept of syndication. And syndication basically means that you do a blog posting, you can syndicate it, which means that it gets included in other lists that other people can put together of your blog articles and others. You can make your articles or your blog postings syndicatable, and the idea of articles are that it's the articles that would be syndicated. The sections are just ways to combine articles within an area, and then the sections, or sorry, the articles are the ones that are the things that are syndicated. So if you want to make use of syndication in your websites, the section and article thing is what you should be using. You don't have to syndicate if you're using section and article. Section and article has its own merits without syndication. But if you are syndicating, this is the way to do it, the proper way to do it that's been made available in HTML5.